The case of IPD against Jay West. This court will remain in order at all times. Any disruptions will result in removal of the courtroom. Prosecution, you may present your opening statements.
May it please the court, my name is Golf X-Ray Andy Eastbrook, and I represent the Infinite Police Department in this matter. This case concerns the kidnapping of Officer Romeo Papa 06 Capri and the shop robbery from Mr. J. West. Obviously, these are just alleged offences, and the evidence will show that on 17th of the 4th, 2026, J. West was in the location and inside the shop of the shop robbery. He was also involved in the kidnapping of Officer Romeo Papa 06 Capri. We will present evidence including witness testimony from Capri herself, which will demonstrate that Mr. J. West's actions were in violation of the law. We will also bring forward photographs of Mr. J. West inside the shop robbery with a vehicle outside, which were also violations of the law. We ask the court to carefully consider the evidence that we will present and arrive at a just and lawful decision.
Thank you. Defense, you may now present your opening statement.
Thank you, Your Honour. The defence position in this case is straightforward. The prosecution's case is built on assumption rather than evidence. They will present no witness capable of identifying J. West at any of the scenes, no reliable forensic evidence linking him to the alleged offence, and no lawful or properly documented basis for the seizure of key items they rely upon. You'll hear that the only eyewitness account describes masked individuals, none of whom can be identified. You also hear that the vehicle linked to my client was seized without proper documentation and without any evidence placing him in control of it at the time. The prosecution may also refer to another individual connected to this matter, but there'll be no evidence presented that establishes any joint participation involving J. West. At the conclusion of this case, it will be clear that the evidence falls far short of the standard required to prove guilt beyond reasonable doubt.
Thank you. We'll now call the first witness to the stand. So, prosecution, would you like to call your first witness?
Yep, we'd like to call Officer Capri to the stand, please. Can you state your name and position for the court, please?
My name is Amelia Capri, and I am Romeo Papa 06 Traffic Division.
Perfect. And how long have you served as a police officer?
Around 2 months, approximately.
Perfect. And were you on duty on the date you were kidnapped?
I was, yeah.
So at the time of the kidnapping, where were you approximately?
Riding out mechanics because I needed a repair.
Okay. And did anything unusual occur?
Yeah, there was an altercation previous, which is how the defendant was identified, because he had a mask on in both altercations. However, we'd already been pursuing the defendant before, which I noted in my statement, and so I was fully aware of his identity from the previous altercation. I'd gone back to ride out as I was needing a repair. That's why I was going towards there in the first instance, before I had the previous, before I was kidnapped. And because I ended up in a chase and I lost vision, I then went back to ride out to then go get this repair, which is where I noticed the defendant and he had a warrant. So then that led to the events.
Perfect. And obviously, while you say you're in ride out, how did you encounter the defendant?
He were outside when I first approached ride out, and then he went inside and parked into a bay. So then I parked behind his vehicle to try to prevent it from leaving. I eventually got out of my vehicle and explained that they're going to be, and then I was like having a conversation that I was planning to arrest him, and that's when I got stuck up.
Okay. How did this situation affect your ability to perform your duties?
Well, I were left with a bit of an injured leg, so I wasn't able to chase unfortunately, I don't have any medical reports because there weren't any. The paramedic that were on duty at the time, he witnessed it, so he wasn't in a fit state himself to be working.
Okay. And obviously, we'll head back to the scene of Ride Out. While you were in there, were you restrained or prevented from leaving?
No.
No. So at any time you could have driven away if needed.
No, because I was already out of my vehicle. It was while I was out of my vehicle. I had
Okay.
a person behind me and the person in front of me. The person behind me had hit me with a bat.
Okay. So they took advantage of you being on your own.
Yeah. They
Okay.
outnumbered me, yeah.
Okay. And if you don't mind me asking, after they'd hit you round with the baton, what happened after that?
I was then told to get into their vehicle. So then they drove outside, just outside the gate door that you drive into, and then there was another gentleman, CJ, who was also who Jay were trying, not Jay, sorry, two of the others involved in the same events. They were outside with this gentleman, CJ, trying to get him into the car. He wasn't really listening to the two that were telling him. So then the defendant, who's sat with his lawyer, to be clear, so we're not getting confused, he then started telling him, having a conversation with him to like do as he's told, because he had weapons to him, etc. And CJ were getting quite heated, and then CJ got injured to the point that he needed medical attention because he ended up on his side. And then eventually he did end up getting in the car also, so then we were taken to a different location. And then I was told to get in and out of a chair multiple times until eventually they realised I was actually in it to begin with. And then I was hit over the knee with a wrench. I had a tooth pulled out, and something else happened. I can't remember the exact other thing, but it was
That's
all
okay.
part of the same thing.
Yep, that's absolutely fine. So how did the situation come to an end?
It came to an end because the defendant realised what he wanted answers to. He realised I couldn't answer them. I'd already told him I'd had no previous involvement. Like, he thought I was lying to him that I had no previous involvement because CJ had said to them that he'd had a meeting with a police officer at 8 a.m. in the morning. And I was like, well, that wasn't me. I wasn't awake that early. I only woke up like an hour ago. And the defendant were adamant that I was lying at that time, but I wasn't. I was telling the truth. So eventually he accepted that I was telling the truth, and so he let me go, but he did take my possessions off me long before we got to that part.
Okay, and what possessions did he take from you?
My phone, my radio, handcuffs, I think that's it.
Okay, that's fine. And so obviously you're saying that
my body cam, sorry, as well.
no, that is absolutely fine. And they said that they released you, yeah? They let you go.
Yeah, after they realised that I wasn't lying, and they told me that I was free to walk, but they weren't returning my belongings.
Okay, and after leaving, whereabouts did you head? Did you walk? Were you picked up?
Yeah, I walked down the hill and then made my own way back to the station because we were only oil fields, so it wasn't crazy far. It was just a bit more strain on my leg.
Okay, that's perfect. That's all the questions I have for Miss Capri.
Officer,
Yeah.
during the incident in question, were the individuals involved wearing masks?
He was masked, but as I stated, I'd already had a previous altercation with him, to which I was chasing his vehicle.
But to this incident, he was wearing a mask.
Right, I was literally chasing him a minute previous. I was fully aware of what clothing he was wearing, what his identity were. I was literally in a chase with him. He didn't have time to go get changed. He had a mask on even in the previous altercation, but he was still identified because one, his vehicle comes back to him, but he also identified himself in that previous conversation. He didn't have time to go get changed or anything.
So you can confirm that it was definitely the same car?
No, it was a different car.
But it was a different car and
But
the individual
same
was
clothing.
masked. So anyone can
was-
wear the same clothes, don't you agree?
Right, what are the chances?
No, answer the question, please.
Right,
Is
anyone
it
can, yeah.
possible he could wear the same clothes as Mr. West?
Yeah.
So at no point did you see the face of the individual you were accusing?
I'm sure I might have done, yeah, but I can't.
So you're
I can't say
speculating?
no, you just asked me a question. Let me fully answer it, please. And, right, I was literally about to say I can't say with 100% certainty that his mask ever came off, but I'm fairly certain that it came off at some point, yeah.
But you're not certain. So you're just
I'm
speculating.
not certain, no. Well, I'm just answering it honestly.
So you're therefore unable to visually identify Mr. West as being present.
Right. If you're physically chasing someone 2 minutes previous and you then see that same person with his known associates, by the way,
Who were also wearing masks, I believe.
and people normally keep the same hairstyle, do they not?
I mean, I'm sure many people have the same hairstyle.
Except from one of their known associates has a very particular colour, don't generally divert from it.
So nobody else has that same.
I'm not saying nobody else does.
So
that
it's
wasn't the
speculation.
question. Right? I never said it was. Like, I'm just saying she don't divert from a colour.
But we are talking about Mr. West here. So you cannot physically identify him. Surely it doesn't matter what the likelihood is. It all comes down to the facts.
And he was in his place of work, which he is known to work there.
So nobody can just go to Rideout, no?
Not anyone can just work in Rideout. Because
during this incident,
parked in their bay is because they were repairing their car. That's why I parked behind it. During that incident.
Who else works at this Rideout? Do you have a full list of names?
James Simmons, Kieran Nixon, Lynx, who owns it, CJ, but he no longer lives in town anymore.
And you can 100% guarantee that you don't know that there are other people employed.
Well, there probably are, yeah. But they're the ones I know.
So other than your belief, do you have any direct evidence that Jay West was one of the individuals involved?
When so many coincidences, like, paint the same picture, it's more than just a belief.
But your conclusion is still based on assumption rather than direct identification.
Right. If you say so.
Right. That's all from me, Your Honour. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Capri. You can step down. Defence, you may now call your witness or present your evidence.
Your Honour, before the defence proceeds, I would like to make a submission. The prosecution has failed to establish any prima facie case against my client. There has been no identification placed in Jay West at the scene, no lawful or documented seizure of evidence, and no direct link between my client and the alleged offence. As such, the defence submits there is no case to answer.
Okay, Mr. McDougal, do you have your first witness?
Your Honour, the defence will not be calling any witnesses.
Okay. Closing statement.
May it please the court, you heard directly from Officer Capri Roma Papa 06, who described how she was restrained and able to leave. You heard how the defendant's actions created fear, not only for the officer's safety, but for the safety of public as well. The case is not complicated. It's very straightforward. The defendant made a deliberate choice, one that resulted in the unlawful detention of Officer Capri. The reports presented and the supporting details are clear and consistent. The law exists to protect individuals, including those who risk their lives to protect others. When the law is broken in such a serious way, it must be addressed. We ask the court to carefully consider the evidence and return to a verdict that reflects the seriousness of this offence. Thank you.
And defence, if you'd like to say your closing statement.
Your Honour, the prosecution asked this court to convict Jay West of a serious and life-altering offence. Such a conviction requires clear, reliable and compelling evidence. That evidence has not been presented. Officer Amelia Capri, the alleged victim, could not identify her attacker. Her claims rest not on observation but on belief, unsupported by body-worn footage, forensic evidence or any independent verification. The physical evidence is equally unreliable. The vehicle seizure is unsupported by any formal report. No record exists of who was driving the vehicle, and no forensic evidence has been presented linking my client to the items recovered. Ownership of a vehicle is not proof of involvement in a crime. And perhaps most concerning of all is the conduct of law enforcement in this case. Before this matter has even reached the courtroom, a public statement was issued by Officer Ruben Bustard, which said, today officers have apprehended BTEC criminal Jay West and has been served his warrant for previously taking an officer hostage. He is currently screaming that he is the best of the best and that his ego may have taken a hit. Your Honour, this is not language of an impartial investigation. This is the language of a conclusion already drawn. My client was publicly labelled a criminal before he ever stood before a court of law. That raises serious concerns about bias and the integrity of the investigation, and about whether this case has been approached with fairness from the very beginning. In the end, the prosecution's case is built not on evidence, but on the assumption there is no identification, there is no reliable forensic link, there is no lawful foundation for the key evidence presented. There is no witness placing Jay West at the scene. The burden of proof lies entirely with the prosecution, and it must be met beyond reasonable doubt. That burden has not been met. Therefore, the only just verdict in this case is not guilty. Thank you, Your Honour.
Okay, thank you. We will now adjourn and the jury can deliberate.
Juror number 1, if you can stand up, please. On the charge of kidnapping and torture, what is your verdict?
Unanimous decision by all 5 jurors, not guilty.
And on the charge of armed robbery, what is your verdict?
Unanimous decision for all 5 jurors. He's guilty.
Okay, so the court finds Jay West innocent on the kidnapping of Miss Capri and guilty of the shop robbery. If the police can approach the stand and give me the fine and sentence, we'll sort Mr. Jay West out for transport.
What, this now?
Mr.
Not
West,
right now.
you have been found guilty for the shop robbery, and you will be sentenced to 55 months in prison with a 10k fine. You will now be taken away and transported to Bolingbroke.